Hey everyone, welcome back to Boxster Racing in 4x4. This week, we're back on the Porsche doing an electric over hydraulic power steering setup, which is a very race car thing to have. So what are we actually doing here? What we're doing is we are installing this unit. It's out of a Vauxhall Astra. And this is because with how I set up the Audi engine swap in the front engine cradle, I can't run the Audi power steering pump. Power steering pump. Yep. So yeah, we're going to run a PTFE line. I think this is more or less going to be the final placement. So with these TRW pumps, which are out of Vauxhall Astros, if you undo this hose clamp, you can rotate the reservoir, which is very important. So what we were able to do is turn the reservoir so it's pointed this way. Now both of these hoses will come off and they are going to go across here, and that is going to be the routing. The wiring is just going to go straight back into here and over to the battery with a breaker on it. Because you don't really want to fuse for something like this. And then one of these three goes to ignition, and that's that. Okay, so up here we've got an Aeroflow barbed 2-6 converter into a 30-degree -6 AN PTFE hose end. And here we have the Russell Performance O-ring, metric O-ring to -6 AN into a 90-degree PTFE fitting. Both those lines run across. They've got some hose clamps on them just to hold them tight. And then way in there, you can see this side of the bulkhead fittings, along with two 30-degree PTFE hose ends. What we have left to do is we got to run from the bulkhead connectors in the wheel well down the power steering rack. Hopefully this is enough hose. These are made by Rebel Racing down in the United States, and they adapt the power steering rack fittings to AN. For the record, this is my first time doing it, and turns out it's actually quite easy to do. Well, maybe not easy, but you could do this with basic tools. Okay, so you can see here we've got our bulkhead fittings poking through. Sorry about the crappy light. In here is the next step. A bit hard to see, but right here there's an Allen bolt that holds a hold down plate, which holds that and that power steering hoses into the rack. So we get that Allen bolt out and the rest should follow. I'm just going to take you along for the ride on this one. And there's our bolt. Here's our plates. Ah, yes, right in the bucket. There's the hold down plate. And out come the power steering lines. There we go. Well, it could have been a lot worse for mess. Now I just gotta trace the lines out of the car all the way to the back, and I'll be right back with you guys in a minute. Okay, so you can see there the two bulkhead fittings coming off with 90s. They wrap around down following the radiator line, then curl under to go to the steering rack with the two fittings. Right in there, you can just see the orange in there. See if we can. That's basically the install right there in the wheel well. And turned out pretty good. And you can see right here, we have a zip tie going around the tubes, holding onto the tube clamp, and it's just going through a piece of rubber hose. So I have to do a little bit more work to clearance the lines to the sway bar. They don't touch right now, but it's closer than I'd like. Okay. And here it is fully installed. You can see I used parts of the mount from the Astra and welded them into the car. Be careful if you do that because the gas tank is right behind that. And you can melt the tank. I didn't, but be aware. Anyways, the install wound up looking really good and nice and clean. Super happy with it. And I still had to do the wiring here. But the wiring just consists of a breaker next to the battery. The ground runs to a ground post just behind the pump there. And then two wires that need switched power, preferably ignition. And that's it.